Welcome to the Springs in the Desert podcast. We're those friends that you can take with you wherever you are on the path of infertility.
Hey, welcome back to the Springs in the Desert podcast. I'm Jillian, your host, and I am joined today by our contributor and good friend, Ian. How are you today, Ian?
All good. And yourself, Jillian?
I'm good. I am so glad to be back on the podcast and to be here talking with you. Today, we're going to be taking a little different spin on a conversation that we have often here at Springs. Listeners, today we're going to talk about Mother's Day, which I know can be a little bit difficult, right? To experience and to be out in the community sometimes for those that are in this community. And I just want to really get Ian's perspective, right? As a husband and a companion to another team member, a great friend, Cassie, and just get a man's perspective on what this day, or really any day, right? I hope this conversation could be used for maybe other holidays or maybe anniversaries or things that might be difficult, and what this really complementarity between man and woman spouses look like. And just to give some practical suggestions about how we can really come together and be united on these days that are difficult. So Ian, thanks for, just opening up this conversation. And I just want to begin Mother's Day, whether we're at Mass or maybe out at a restaurant, or maybe family is in town, or maybe we're just at a store or watching TV or on the radio. Like there could be advertisements, there could be announcements, music, all sorts of things on top of people and regular routines that happen on days like Mother's Day. And I just wanted to open up the conversation and what have you as a spouse experienced or witnessed, observed from your wife on these days? What are some of the things that you have noticed can be really maybe difficult for your spouse, and I'm sure for many women in general on these kinds of days?
Yeah, it is such an important time of the year where we're celebrating motherhood. I've had so many conversations with Cassie, my wife. We've been married for 15 years. I consider myself a latecomer and really tuning into her experience on Mother's Day, because we're there to celebrate the women and the mothers in our lives, and it's also such a triggering time. I think that's the one word that just keeps coming to my head because of so much in our culture. It's singling out this, you were able to be a mother. And so it's not a general holiday where you're just celebrating women or that sort of thing, or femininity, or however. It's this one particular magnifying glass is being placed on this one role that you have. And the triggers, yes, you see it so much, I think, on TV commercials. You're getting bombarded with them in your emails, so many different types of ads. Get this for your mother or your wife on Mother's Day, all that kind of thing.
Yes.
Yeah, there's so much of that. And what happens is, especially at church, say Mother's Day Mass, that was a tough time for Cassie, because the priest would typically say, the homily will say something about motherhood and all these wonderful things, and your child this, and you do this, and you're nurturing them, and you're doing all this. And you're playing it up, and then, can I have all the mothers stand? And so all the mothers stand. And it just really, it was very difficult, very painful for her. And she just felt, I don't know how many times she told me this in different scenarios of those similar blessings or those conversations with others where people are in a group and they're all talking about their kids. She just feels as though everyone's looking at me and feeling sorry for me and thinking that I'm living my life wrong. It's just like this almost that sense of shame, a very strong sense of shame. And it was just, I didn't notice it. I always kept trying to reason it away in those early days. Just, it's okay. You have great motherly qualities, that sort of thing. And you have your godchildren. But it was never hitting that wound that was really being triggered in her, that was being brought out. And so it's so difficult because there's this spiritual aspect, because you're there for Mass, you're there to give glory to God. But then Mother's Day is it's like a national holiday kind of thing. It's in the culture, like American culture kind of thing. And then there's the psychological journey of it. So there are all those things. But I think just between the spiritual and that national holiday coming together there in church, so that makes it difficult. And then also people too in church are like, you don't have kids, that sort of thing. And then, I'm so sorry. Or, then they start to problem solve.
Right. You hit on so many things that I hadn't even thought of originally. One of the things that really stuck out to me was emails. I get so many emails from businesses or ads that come into my inbox that some years I was able to just delete it really quickly and it's just spam email. But other times that it's really difficult to read those emails or get them. And too, that there's so many different feelings that can run through our minds and our hearts on those days. And at Mass, like you said, we go to be nourished, to be more united to Jesus. And that particular call out of mothers, could you stand? I think could feel conflicting, right, in our hearts that we are coming to be united. And I feel this sort of divide, not just maybe from my pastor, but from this community at large. So we will link in the show notes. We have several different resources for pastors. But one of the encouragements that we give is to ask all women to stand, because we are all spiritual mothers and fathers. We are all, like you said, Mother's Day isn't this national holiday celebrating femininity at large, but truly, like, women have these beautiful gifts that are to nurture and care for and provide. And I think to honor all of those things, there's ways we can do that in the community. While you were talking, Ian, one of the questions that came into my mind that I was just curious about, on Father's Day, what is that like for you? Right? The feminine heart and the masculine heart receive things a little bit differently. And so I can really relate to some of the things that you were sharing that Cassie has felt. And I wonder if you would be willing to just share a little bit about Father's Day, if those emails or the ads or all these things that we see in the world, and then even at Mass, if there's a blessing, what has that felt like for you?
Oh, yeah. Thanks for bringing that up. I didn't experience it at all the way Cassie did. And I think that's the challenge about marriage, right? Like you came in expecting to have children. Okay, we're going to have however many children the Lord gives us, and that doesn't happen. And then my experience of our infertility was just, we can't have kids, but I didn't, I didn't feel connected to what Cassie's experience was. And whenever the priest says, okay, all fathers, please rise, everyone raise your right hand or whatever, give them a blessing or however, I've always been fine to sit down. Yeah, sure, go for it. Go. And then whenever I get hit with any type of ad about Father's Day, I need to reach out to my dad, or I wonder what we're going to do for him. But it was really, I just feel like it's just, how they call it, like being a mallard duck, like the rain just full out, it just doesn't bother me. And sure. I think it's different for men. And that's the challenge, is that just because it's like X-rays and gamma rays, no one can see them really. You can't see them. It's like you have to go through this whole line of logic and reasoning to realize that they do exist. And I feel like it's that same thing in marriage. It's just, when you keep seeing this unknown ray, it's having effect on my wife, like ultraviolet rays. I don't understand it. I don't know where it's coming from, but it's having this effect. It's really just trying to name it, try to build a vocabulary, try to understand, like, what's this emotion she's experiencing? What did they say? How did she take it? And then we started learning about things like bad beliefs that you can have, and the grief that like Cassie told me, I'm grieving the mother I can't be, I'll never be, or I'm grieving the child I could never have. And when she told me that one day, I was like, it made it more concrete for me. Like, You're grieving the child. And I was like, so you're holding, I don't know why it just brought this imagery in my head that I'm holding an infant, but it's not there. And I'm sad that it's not there. And even right now, when I say that, I want to cry. It's just, it's a spiritual realization. Yeah.
I appreciate you sharing that, because that is really the concrete that here at Springs, we are always encouraging fruitfulness in whatever way it is that God is calling us to be. And although that's a beautiful challenge and the call of all of us to be present and to receive what God is giving us and to give what He's asking of us to give, that grief is real. And we don't want to avoid that. We don't want to surpass it. We don't want to ignore it or push it aside. And
I did so much of that in my early marriage. Yeah, you should feel that way. Don't think of it this way, sweetheart. And don't look at it that way. And it's many ways I was trying I was trying to control the way she felt. I didn't realize that, but I was trying to don't feel that, or try to get her to discount and minimize things. So, yeah, that worked for me, but that was just not the way to approach my marriage with her. And how is it? However much I tried doing that my instinctual way, it never worked. It just absolutely never worked. And after about 5-6 years of marriage doing that, it's okay. I need to understand something, Lord. I don't know what it is, and it sounds like it's going to hurt. And that was,
Yeah. And I think that really just draws into the point that there are going to be reminders, whether that's on Mother's Day or Father's Day, or maybe in a conversation with someone else or out and about, that there are longings of our heart that aren't fulfilled. And Mother's Day and Father's Day are and can be really big reminders that this longing for a child isn't fulfilled, and that although yes, we can encourage and recognize the many ways that we are mothering and fathering to those in our lives, the unique expression of motherhood and fatherhood that we've been longing for perhaps hasn't been fulfilled, or not in the ways that we were hoping. And
right.
yeah, so I appreciate you sharing that, because I remember talking with my husband, and he likewise didn't feel the same sort of sadness, or maybe even for me, I felt a little awkward at Mass, and he didn't necessarily feel that way. But there were other things. There were other times, other moments where his siblings started having children. And especially after we lost our 2 children in miscarriage, who would have been the same ages as some of our nieces and nephews, and realizing that, about this time we would have been able to do X, Y, or Z. And even just realizing there's all of us on this path are in different places and have different experiences. And even that can be complicated. I have friends who have never been able to conceive, right? We have teammates who have never been able to conceive, those who have lost, and those who have never been on this path. They've been able to, some friends have been able to get pregnant easily. And so to be able to come together and celebrate each other and address those concerns, it's challenging, especially as you said, that men and women might experience those days differently. And so I think this is a good time maybe to give some suggestions, right? If you are experiencing the same thing, and perhaps other couples have different experiences, but if you're a marriage, maybe you are the wife and maybe these days are really difficult for you, but maybe your spouse isn't struggling so much on these days, or vice versa. Ian, what has been helpful for your marriage in terms of support on these days when there's a variety of emotions, a variety of, as you said, events or words or things that might be a bit triggering or might be really complicated to work through? What are ways that have been helpful for your marriage to support each other, but more specifically, you to Cassie?
I look back at my own journey as a man. I started in my early 30s. I started going through like depression, started going through negative thinking, started realizing, hey, these other younger work colleagues of mine, they're so much faster mentally than I am. And long story short, I started realizing I had ADHD, and then I had to start dealing with these emotional things that were happening in my life. And I didn't know it. I just kept pizza and beer and watching shows and hobbies and traveling, all that stuff. I kept thinking that was making me feel better, but there was a point in my early 30s where the bill came due. And that was where I started running on fumes, and I didn't know why. And in that process, I started learning about the word depression and what it means. It's a lot of, like, depression could be a lot of unresolved emotions that you just throw that in the closet too. And I started making that connection that, hey, every time I'm reaching for some type of worldly comfort, is it because there's some emotion I'm feeling right now? Am I feeling sad? Am I feeling like celebratory? Am I feeling disappointed? And I started realizing, like with fast pitch Major League Baseball or something, it comes at you 95 mile an hour. And I started realizing, wait a minute, when you start to do a freeze frame oh, that right there is jealousy. Oh, that right there that's a lot of disappointment when that happened. And when I started healing in that regard, naming those emotions, I recognized them in myself. And lo and behold, this woman that I'd been married to at that point, I think about 6 years, I knew these looks on her face, but then I started giving it a name. Oh, she's anxious right now. Oh, she's whatever, she's happy. Oh, she's feeling insecure right now. All these words that I was never really taught growing up. Our society doesn't value it. No one really talks about it in our careers. It's just like, hey, suck it up, buttercup. Just work hard, play hard. That's the culture we're from. That's what it means to be a man. And in all humility, that was where I met the Lord. I really met the Lord in terms of, Lord, I need your help. I don't know what's happening here. I'm a full grown man, but yet I feel like a child. And that was where I started to attune to my wife. I started coming into what she was telling me all of those years before. And then we went on a marriage encounter about our 5th year of marriage. And that was where they started talking about emotions, but feeling each other's feeling. Don't solve it. Don't say that an emotion is bad. Don't try to kick the emotion out the room, but just say, hey, what are you feeling? How would you describe it on a scale of 1 to 10? How, with 10 being the big feeling of anger. How angry are you? Oh, I'm a 7. Oh, okay. That sort of thing. And that's what really started that attunement and realizing, like when we went to Mass, when we had conversations with Catholic friends, when we ran into Catholic friends that had lots of kids and they would give us these, I don't know, this advice, or you could see that they were uncomfortable. And that was whenever I started realizing I need to protect my wife. I need to, this stuff is triggering for her. And what can I do? What can I say to others to not make them feel obligated to tell her, oh, it's okay, it'll happen. You don't have to say that. Or let's just not go to some of those places anymore. Let's find something else to do. It was where that creative side came to be in terms of our identity as a couple at that point. What do we need to do to bring out what's best in our marriage? What can I do as her husband to bring out what's best in my wife? And that was truly revolutionary for us in our marriage when coming together as one.
Yeah. Well, gosh, just thank you so much for sharing that. We all, as many of us probably have our own stories that, right, God is so close to us in our weakest moments and in right where we're really struggling, right where we are weak, he is strong. And so just how beautiful that you are able to meet the Lord while working on virtue in your own life and able to by that recognize how it's also right you're not alone, you're one flesh with your wife, and how you can serve her in those ways. And that's this idea of protection is really something beautiful that I think a lot of husbands
couldn't agree with you more.
could relate to. I think so many husbands in our community could relate to this idea of protecting and wanting to protect and trying to find ways to protect. And so before we wrap up this episode, I'm wondering if we could just maybe give some practical ways that husbands could protect their wives, what that might look like, right? And it's not as if we know that people in our lives are typically not trying to intentionally hurt us. They just might not have the words, or we are in these routines and we just say things sometimes without thinking. And so what are some things that you have done that have been helpful to Cassie and making, whether that's Mother's Day or other days, at least an experience of calm and peacefulness, maybe even joy?
Yes, I'm really excited about this part because I'd never sat there and thought about all these ideas that have come up over the years as to how to support my wife through Mother's Day season. And one thing I wanted to clarify is, yes, men are there we want to protect our wives, protect our marriage, but it's not the same as avoiding. I know that there's certain people you may want to avoid if they're very uncomfortable or they're just very insensitive and it really hurts your wife. And they might mean, but they just emotionally, they're not safe to be around. And sometimes you have to be you have to skirt around it, but not altogether avoiding. You do have to grow as a couple. You do have to go out there in public sometimes, and people might ask you a hard question. But when your wife knows that you have her back, when your wife knows that you're there to protect her emotionally that goes a long ways in terms of just understanding her. But what's exciting about Mother's Day, I think the opportunity is that you as a husband can really focus on how your wife has those kind of motherly traits to her. How has she been nurturing and supportive of you, encouraging of you over this past year? In what ways have you seen her express her motherhood with your nieces and nephews? Or say if she works with kids in her job and you hear her and see, in what ways can you compliment her and say, hey, you know what? You would have been a good mother. You're doing good motherly things. And I think that has scored me so many, as I call brownie points with my wife, because it'll stop her right where she's really, thank you. I'm like, wow, I just scored points. And once again, it's one of those things I never knew existed until I came into her grief, into her sorrow, that I started realizing that there's this other language to speak. And so another thing too, in terms of what traditions can you create for your wife or with your wife for Mother's Day, I think one thing to do is to ask your wife, hey, sweetheart, I know that Mother's Day it can be a tough day. It's a tricky one. What do you want to do on Mother's Day? And some of the ideas that have come up for Cassie and I over the years are, let's go to a different mass. Let's go to a different church than the one we are at, because too many people know us there. Too many people are going to want to say something. And sometimes that anonymity is good on that day. Another one is, what can you do also to celebrate Mother's Day is, hey, does she like to go for hikes? Does she like to listen to podcasts and take a drive to the beach? Or do you guys want to use that weekend to go somewhere, take a little weekend trip somewhere? Because it shows her, you're giving her that quality time. You're giving her that chance to just step out of the world she's in and to just be together and to be with the Lord. You can take the time, if you go hiking together, you could say a rosary together. So there's these little traditions that definitely be open-ended with your wife. Ask her, hey, what do you like to do? And you might already know some of the things she likes to do to relax or to get energy, some recreation. Those are the things to do, to be looking out for with her. Another thing too is you could stay home and listen to her some favorite music that she likes and work on puzzles together during that day. These are all kind of things that we've done over the years. And I think that it's worth a try as a way of showing your spouse that she's valued and that she's loved.
Wow. Thank you for all those suggestions. All of those things sound really lovely, things like I would like to do. And so I think that's just a beautiful array of ideas that I hope our community can at least take one of those and maybe try them this year, if that's something that you're at. And thank you so much for being here and talking about this topic. It's Mother's Day can be a hard day for some. And so to just open it up as a spouse, right? We're a union. We're one flesh and we can support each other on this path and we can carry the cross together. And I'm so grateful to know you and Cassie. I think you guys share the cross so well and support each other so beautifully. And I'm hoping our listeners will be able to just feel supported in this. So, dear listeners, it's been good to be with you. And we're praying for you as these holidays approach and as difficult anniversaries come up. And if you have other ideas about ways that spouses can support each other, please feel free to share with us. And we'll see you next time on the podcast. Thank you, Ian.
Thank you so much for having me. God bless you all.
Thank you so much for joining us for this Springs in the Desert podcast episode. We would be so grateful if you took a minute to rate and review us so that we can reach more listeners. Don't forget to check out our social media pages on Facebook and Instagram, and go to our website, springsinthedesert.org, where you can sign up for our newsletter and community prayer list, read our blog, and register for virtual and in-person events. Most importantly, remember that God loves you so much, and so do we.